So I work for the International Seed Federation, ISF, and within ISF, I'm looking after topics related to sustainability, climate change, and some crop-specific topics.
Thanks for having me. I'm Michael Keller, Secretary General of the International Seed Federation. It's representing the seed sector at a global level. That means we have 78 national seed associations, like the Seed Trade Association of Kenya, STAC, who is a member of ISF. We have many other seed associations here in Africa, but also in Asia, in North America, South America, Europe.
I'm Akhtar Santosh Attawa. Currently, my role in ISF is the president of ISF. So I've been there since the last May.
So to answer your question, I will say that indigenous species are very important, and there are some international treaties and mechanisms to protect these kind of wild species, and also the use of those genetic resources, because there need to be mutual access and benefit sharing for those what we call germplasm to be used by farmers or breeders, companies, to be able to continue to develop. Exactly back to your first question about how can we continue to adapt our varieties to climate change. So there is a need that indeed we get access to all those kind of genetic resources, germplasm, including indigenous species, to be able to address those challenges. Because in terms of disease resistance, for instance, or drought tolerance, indigenous species can have some very important key traits in their genomes that can really help farmers to address the challenge they are facing.
Absolutely critical. I'm always saying, in the International Seed Federation, as I told you from the beginning, we are looking for providing seed choice for farmers. But when I'm speaking about choice for farmers, I'm saying the farmer needs to be able to choose between land races, indigenous seeds, seeds coming from public research or international research programs like TJERA, but also from the private sector. It means what we are looking for is that the farmer, depending on the needs, on these sometimes very small lands, can use a diverse range of seeds. And we have very often the example that people are using land races or others, for instance, for the production of corn, and using a private sector variety for tomatoes or others, or for sorghum. That means we should stop to think that the farmer is only using one kind of seed. The farmer today should be able to use the best seed fitting for the needs. And yes, it can be that the indigenous seed is far better fitting for the needs in a given crop than a seed coming from the private sector.
The indigenous seed everywhere is gaining a lot of popularity, because indigenous seed they've been around for a long time, several species of fruit, vegetable, leafy crops. So I think people are working on developing those crops to make them more producible, so that they are produced in large scale and consumption is also happening. So this is what is happening. Coming to the indigenous crops, I think they have a lot of potential. Again, even if it's an individual crop, what you need to understand is you need to have good production systems to produce the seed, whether it's open pollinated or hybrid. So for that, you need to have a proper seed system. Like I've seen examples where great indigenous products have just not been maintained because they were not able to, farmers sometimes were not able to produce them, or institutes were not able to produce them, and they are lost in many cases forever. But of late, it's good that there's a lot of awareness, and even a lot of our members are also working with indigenous crops to use them to develop better products going forward.
So that's a good question, because I know that it's a hot topic in Kenya, but in Africa and in a lot of countries. By nature, almost all the plant that we eat today has been adapted, modified in a way. GMO you're referring to is just one technology that breeders can use, have the possibility to use to be more precise and to be faster in their breeding method. But it's used just on a limited number of crops, mostly on row crop, field crops, and in a limited number of countries to address very specific issues. Now there are some other technologies, what we call new breeding techniques, like gene-edited crops, that is also being used. So it's also some new technology that is being used by breeders to be more precise and more efficient. And as I mentioned at the beginning, to be able to bring good quality seeds and varieties to the farmers instead of within 15 years time frame, maybe within 5 years. So that's a way, this technology could be also interesting, and that's where we're also pushing as ISF, as organization representing seed companies and seed members, to have science-based policies to make sure that if there is an interest and a need to use those technologies, there will be this policy environment that will allow public institute, private sector to use those technologies.
I'm always saying, let me say it like this. In seeds, you have a lot of research and development. Private sector, like I mentioned to you, is constantly investing into seeds. In the International Seed Federation, our members are working on 80 different crops with hundreds of breeding programs. And what we are doing is, for each of these breeding programs, we are using different tools of breeding. Genetically modified organism is one breeding tool. Within the whole toolbox we have, it means we have normal hybrid, we have genetically modified, and we are starting also to integrate in our breeding programs gene editing. It means what we are looking for is that we are able to use all the breeding tools to provide the farmers with the best solution, with the best seeds. Therefore, I'm saying genetically modified organism or seeds are certainly an important tool and are helpful. We know about fall armyworm and others, helpful tool. But we should think about that all the other improved varieties, also from the seed sector, are helpful tools. Therefore, one is not replacing the other. It's a complementary system, and therefore our call is also to the authorities here in Africa and in the different countries that they put in place the right setup of regulations concerning gene editing, because we see gene editing certainly as a tool for further breeding, which will enlarge our capacity to address topics like climate change.
I think we need to first look at food security and look at the benefits of technology and understand it really well. And if a GM is able to give good quality food and people can be fed, that's very important. So what we look at is really that aspect. And if the technology is good and it's proved to be safe, why not, Because on one end, we have the issue of people being hungry. And on the other end, we have, sometimes we think certain technologies are not good due to non-scientific understanding. So we tend to do that. But we shouldn't do that, and we should look at technologies that will help put food on the table for all of us, especially for the hungry and impoverished people who constantly need the support.
I think Kenya is playing a very important leading role in agricultural productivity to also deliver food security and food safety for the country. And I think I will love to see Kenya continuing to play this leading role in the region and on the continent for the other neighboring countries and all the different countries to be interested to see how they can leverage their agricultural productivity. Because to build a strong economy and a strong sector where everybody has access to food and has a healthy life, to build a resilient and strong agricultural sector is key. And for that, I think Kenya and authorities and policymakers, regulators understood quite quickly how important it was, and now we can see how important agriculture is and how efficient and performant, innovative the agricultural sector in Kenya is. So my wish and my last word will be, take Kenya as a good example and continue to be a leader on the eastern coast here, to really make sure that all the other countries that would like to follow the good example of Kenya will take the same route and the same path.
I see huge opportunities, and I'm very often I'm excited to meet young people in Africa also about the positive attitude. We know we are facing, and you are facing, a lot of issues in Africa. And we know also that, my goodness, today you have sometimes the impression agriculture is not more exciting for the young people. But I'm always making the call, my God, there's nothing more respectful, but nothing more important than to work in agriculture, in food production. I see dynamics, but I see also new opportunities in many countries, because countries are starting to build more and more better business environment in the countries, also on seed and the seed sector, like in Zambia. It's very interesting example, but also like in Ghana, where they just adopted also plant variety protection rights. But in many countries also in Northern Africa, that means I see the opportunities. Now we need also to build the right understanding and to attract more investment also in Africa and also on seeds. Again, the private sector cannot do it alone, but together we can go in the right direction.
The very positive sign, I think we now need to really look at developing more of the good formal systems. And you have very good agroclimatic zones, so different kinds of seed can be produced here. More of that needs to be done. And also, that's not only for Africa. I think the African countries need to think of also producing seed to export to other countries. Then your farmers also will earn much better. So it's good for seed production, it's good for consumption from both angles.